Hello everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. This YouTube channel is dedicated to the Lake Erie and North Shore Railroad. And this is episode 18, and we're going to start a massive reconstruction project where we're going to reconstruct curves and inclines, because the one thing I've discovered is that trains don't like inclines and curves. And when you mix them together, it's a real construction problem. It's an engineering delight. So what I've had to do, fire the engineers who did it the first time because they didn't know what they were doing. We're going to relook at it. We're going to do it again. We're going to rip it all up and we're going to reconstruct it. A lot of good tips in this. And we're also going to, while we're doing it, we're going to set up the initial layout and foundation for a mining company, as well as we'll show you some tips on laying track and how to wire the track and a lot of good stuff. So this is just a really good episode, and I hope you'll join me for some railroad soul.
Across the prairies to the sea, they laid the iron for the rails and we ride. They shared their lives, their hearts, and their pride. They had railway soul.
Hey, welcome back. This is the continuation of my attempt to fix the fact that my curves were too tight. And look, when I first ran this, when I first ran the trains, I was only running 4-axle trains, and they seemed to handle the combination of the incline and the curve okay. But when I started running the 6-axle trains, they just couldn't do it. They derailed every time. So the combination of, when I ran them on just flat curves of the same magnitude, they were fine. But when you put the incline on, the grade, the friction as the wheels try to come around the curve and the grade at the same time pulls the front wheels off, and they just derail. So what you can see here, what I've done is this, just take my pen here. This is the old track location here, and this is the problem, is that the curve is too tight. So what I've done is pulled up the track, and I've put in a piece, flex track here, all the way around. You can see it comes up onto the fascia holder, see that? So it's up, so I've got to cut that out, relay the track bed, and we'll see if we can get that to work. So I ran some trains on this, and the curve and the elevation, they run fine. So it's corrected the problem here. So what I'll do is I think what I've got to do is cut some of this out, cut some of this, cut some of this, relay some plywood in here, and then relay the track bed along here. And I'm not worried about this too much because I'll just cover that up with scenery, and so I'm going to leave that. Now, I've started, what I've done is I've just marked with this pen in the center. I don't know if you can see this, but see the dots there. So I marked in the center of where that track is going to go, so I know where to cut. And this just piece of foam in here that I put in to didn't want trains falling off, going down, smashing on the floor. So I put that in there, and I also have another piece here which I've taken out now. But we'll get at that, and I'll update you when it's done. Hopefully trains will run. Okay, thank you. See you soon. Okay, quick update on the moving the curves out on this section of the layout here on the upclimb. Now I managed to get the this area, these boards cut down. I got a new plywood base in there, and what a job that was. I couldn't get any power tools in there other than the Dremel tool, so I just scored the inside and outside of this board with the Dremel, just maybe 1/8 of an inch deep. And then I did it the old-fashioned way, pulled out the old chisel and started going. Chiseled a bit off this one too, but now it's all in there. I think I've got enough clearance, so I'm gonna go ahead and put some track bed down, and I'll update you when the track bed's down. This is the one curve. Got this all, got the bed in. I've got to sand all this. Have installed the track bed on the plywood that I put in there. Wow, that was an interesting job. Do that, but it's in now, and I've got to sand all this off. I've speckled it all up. Now I'm going to start work over here. Remember, this is the final too tight curve, and so what I've done is I've cut another extension piece of road plywood. I put it in. It's kind of a weird shape, but I had to make it work, and I had to also make sure that there was enough clearance there to have that track be a mining track, but it's part of it's going to be under the mountain, part of it isn't, and I'm going to bring this curve out, so I've got to take out all of that elevated track all the way along. I'm going to take out this section of the Y, and I'm just going to have one slow curve coming in here with some switches, with one switch here, then 2 other switches, which is going to allow the mining company that I want to put in on the top of the mountain. Okay, so that's just a quick update. I will update you when I have the track out, the elevated track out. It breaks my heart, but I'm going to have to do it, because it's no good having a train track that a loco can't go on. So that's the rule that I should have known, that you don't have tight curves on an incline, and I didn't know it, but now I do, so I'm making the changes. So anybody out there who's just starting to do a track plan or lay track, do not cheat on the curves. Do not cheat on the curve radius. You'll regret it later. You're going to have to come back and change it anyway. The laws of physics don't bend just because you've bent the track too much. See, I've bent that just to make it fit, and I thought I was real smart making that fit, but it wasn't. So now it's coming out, so I will update you when that's all out. Thanks. Okay, hello everybody, welcome back. Just a quick update. I've taken out all of the old track bed, and I'm just starting to lay out, so I'll show you here, taking out all that track. It was absolutely devastating to do it, but it's done, and now I'm starting to lay the new curve, which is a lot less dramatic. And I have also sketched in the outline of the mining company that's going to go there, so I know where my tracks have to go. And I also want to make sure I have clearance on this main line, the new main line track coming in. So I'll just tell you that it was quite a job getting the old track bed out, but I used this tool here, which helped a lot, just cutting out along the bottom. And then I use this tool here, which is one of these little scrubby things. This thing is amazing. It just scrubbed up that stuff in like 5 seconds flat. Over here where I've started to, I had to scrape that stuff out. And anyway, I just thought I'd let you know, get one of these things. These are amazing. This little saw really helped a lot. And I'm just about ready to mark this track, and then I'll start laying the roadbed. And I've got an idea. I don't know if it's going to work, but I've got an idea for laying my for putting in my tortoise motors on these switches on this new piece right here, this whole new piece. So I'm thinking I'm just going to unscrew it and flip it over and then put the tortoises on. And that might be easier than trying to work up underneath here. Now, that's just my plan. I don't know if it's going to work or not. Also, I'm going to just show you how steep this bankment here has to be on the mountain. So I'm thinking I might have one of those, one of these tracks will be a closed mine. So maybe put a little entranceway here and put some rocks in front of it or something. And then this will be hopefully exposed as the old mine site. Or maybe even this is where they pull out some of the gypsum and then they transport it up to the factory or to the mine up here, where then they grind it up, put it in cars, and then send it over to the factory. So I think that I've got a storyline I'm going to use, that they used to have a conveyor, but the conveyor kept breaking down, so they said we're going to ditch that idea and we're going to go up the railroad. So they commissioned the railroad line to take the gypsum rocks up to the mine that's probably about 100 feet or so, maybe more, 200 feet higher up the mountain. So we'll see how that all works out, and I will update you when I have the track bed down, and maybe I'll even do a quick video of laying the track bed so you can kind of see how I do it. It's not maybe the most perfect way or the best way, but it's at least you'll get to see how I do it, and you might get some tips from that. Okay, so now I've just realized I've got this huge sort of area with no track in it, and I've got to fight the urge to put track down there because I want to leave some space for some buildings and scenery and things. So anyway, I'll update you once I have this new section started with the track bed, and maybe I'll do some track bed laying video just so you can watch how I do it. Okay, thank you. See you soon. Okay, so now I'm back. I've got the track all pinned in place here. Okay, so this is the new track with the new curve. It's all pinned in place. I've got this road bed down here. It all has to be sanded and painted yet, but coming along. And then up here, this was that curve that had to be replaced. So I've got the new track pinned down. It's going around, goes down to the other main line, and then there's the switch out and the sidings for the mining company. It's going to go in there. So the next step is to mark this and get the roadbed down. Now, I do have this issue, and everyone who has got an incline that's coming to a flat, you're going to have this issue of the transition from coming up to flat. So I think what I am going to do here is I'm going to take some of the bottom off of the roadbed here and add a little bit more here. So that should, sorry about my hand, add a little bit more here. So take some off here as we come across the transition, and then add a little bit here, and then hopefully by about here it'll be flat and we don't have to worry about the transition. Now I've got the same problem here, you see, with this curve. So I've tried to just wedge it to see if I can get this flat, and that actually, even though it looks terrible, actually has the track pretty good. So the train is navigating that track fairly well. So I just have to come up with a solution to make the track that, to fill that in with something that is going to look good once we ballast and get things going, painting the track, ballast, that kind of stuff. But the main thing is we got to get trains running flawlessly before we start any of that stuff. And that's been my quest, I suppose, for probably the last couple months now, is to really dig down, make sure this track is going to both look realistic and also work flawlessly all the time. I don't want derailments, don't want cars uncoupling, all that kind of stuff. Now you can see right here, if you look down that track, you can see where the track bends a little bit. I've done that kind of on purpose, because when I look at the photos of a lot of this real mainline track that's that I've seen, you can see these, it's not always sort of laser straight. There is a bit of a little curve there. So I thought I'd put in a little bit of a curve, see, maybe that's wrong. Maybe it's not going to work right when the trains start running, but I think to me that looks a little bit more realistic, and especially coming up an incline and through mountainous country, sometimes they don't always have the tracks exactly dead bone laser straight. So here's the update. Just took all that stuff out. Now I've got the track laid, and we're going to mark that, and then we're going to do some roadbed laying, and I'll be back soon. So I'm starting to get the track outline down, and I thought I'd just take a second to show you how I do the outlines. I'm not saying it's perfect or anything, just from experience of laying this track bed. So what I do is I dot in the center about every second tie, roughly, and then around the turnouts, I actually indicate where the turnout begins and ends, and then I put a little bit of mark there with a Y where the two tracks start to separate, so I know where the track bed has to be. Again, I still dot in between the tracks, okay, and then we just remove the pins. Now we keep these pins handy because you're going to need them again once you get that roadbed down and you start gluing the track down. So I always just put them over here. Sorry. And then I just move this track out of the way. And you can see we have our dots, and I just fill these in. And you try to be as accurate as possible here, because that's where you're going to lay, that's the center line for your track bed. So now I know when I'm laying the track bed, there's where my switches end. I know that's where the tracks, the edges of the tracks are, so I can make sure my road bed is following that line. This is the center of the road bed here. And then I have my switches indicated so I know where they all are. Okay, so let's lay some road bed. I'll be back. Okay, so got the lines all done, and now we're ready to start laying the glue down and get the road bed in place. And this is the stuff that I use. It's liquid nails, fast grab. It's pretty good. It gives you a little bit of time to maneuver things into place, but it also holds pretty good. And if you do need to bring the track up, you can get it up if you're careful. I've got a lot of experience doing that, so I know kind of what I'm talking about here. So remember, we're gonna, here where the where we have the incline coming up, or the grade coming up, and then it flattens out. I'm going to take a little bit off the bottom of the road bed, and you'll see that the road bed I'm using comes in strips like this. Okay, I think this is Midwest products. Okay, and then you just take this and rip it down the center. Just bend it like this. It's hard to do with one hand, but you just rip this. Down the center, and then you flip it over. So you have one side has a bevel here, and one side has a bevel there. So you just flip them back like this, and that makes your road bed. Now along here, you'll feel, if you just run your finger down there, it's a pretty rough area where the cork is sort of ripped. That all has to be sanded off. This has to be sanded to make it smooth, any lumps, bumps, imperfections. And then remember, I'm going to sand a bit more off on the underside of this, where this rise hits the level. We're going to see if we can solve some of the problems of decoupling and things like that when the train hits that, that little decline hill. Okay, so we're going to try and make that as gradual as possible. Now the other thing that I want to bring into the picture here, yes, those are gloves. And I find that if I wear some gloves, it saves getting that glue on your fingers and having to peel it off for the rest of the next 2 days. Yes, I know you feel kind of stupid with the gloves on, and my wife comes in and says, thought you were making a train, not doing brain surgery. But anyway, we'll get the gloves on and we'll get the glue going, and then I'll come back and we'll show you how we lay the track down, or lay the road bed down, and then maybe show you a few turnouts, how we do those. Okay, or how I do them anyway. Thanks, I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so now we're gonna I'm just gonna show you how to lay down a little bit of a base. Now this is the tool that I'm using here, and you'll see you squeeze the trigger and then the glue comes out the other end. There is this little trigger here, so once you've pulled and squeezed out the amount you want, you can press this little lever and it will relieve the pressure and slow down the caulk or the glue from coming out the other end. So just a little tip. So here we go. I'm gonna just run a bead just down each side of this line. just put that somewhere where it's not going to hurt anything if it does drip. And then you just take your little putty knife and you smooth this out. I just kind of do one side at a time. It's okay if this does get outside of the road bed a little bit. It's all going to be scenery anyway. I do the whole switch or turnout. I'll show you how to fill that in. And once that's all nicely done, I usually wipe off my paddle right away so that it's clean and it doesn't dry on you. Now, I'll usually lay this laying the inside first, and you just put it down following the line. And I just run it all the way through the switch, just like that. This is where you have to make sure that you're completely lined up. And bring this second piece into place, and we just run it tight to the other. And I'm just going to run that right about here. It's going to separate out a bit and follow the outside of that switch. Turn out, make sure everything's nice and snug here. So we've got the road bed in place now, following our line. And there's our turnout starting to happen. And I'll refix the camera and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, I've repositioned the camera so you can get a better look here. Now, I keep a box of pieces of track bed that I cut but I haven't used, because there's always a time where one will come in handy. And if not, you can just cut another piece. It's not that difficult to cut. You just take one of these utility knives and you can cut it up nicely to have it fit. So I'm just going to cut this one. And I can see it's going to go to about there. Nice and sharp, and have it come out to the end, like that. And we just bend this over gently at the ends. No, that wasn't very good. Let's cut another one. This one has a little bit of a bend on it. So I'm going to try and get a little bit of a bend on this one. Okay, now that one's much better. Just cut that off there. Now, if it doesn't line up exactly at the end, that's fine. We can put some more cork in there later. This little piece here. Okay, now I'm going to continue with the gluing. So we'll come along here. Might go off camera for a second. I'm trying to do this by myself, so I don't have someone else holding the camera. So it may be a bit erratic at times. Okay, now I'm just going to take that paddle, smooth this down. Now this piece didn't have enough under it, so I'm just going to slide some in there. And smooth that down, making sure that at the joints, at the two ends, you're coming right up to the end with the glue. I always put a bit of extra glue at the joint where it comes across the bench. There we go. Get a piece of track or road bed here. I'm just gonna rip it apart. And again, I'll place the one farthest away from me first. Make sure I get that lined up pretty exact. Excellent. Bring this one in. Just tighten that up. Now, if you see some sections starting to slip away from where you want them to be, you can pin them. I'm just cutting this off to meet at the other end. There we go. Now you can see we can still move that a little bit, but it's already starting to take a pretty good bite there. And I just pressure that, make sure that it's down. Very good. Just a little bit of a nubby here that I'm going to take off, because that's going to create havoc when I put the other one on. I'm just going to run maybe here. I think I'll be able to go all the way to the end with one piece now. Just get a bit of this stuff out of the way. And I'll change that camera angle in a second. Put all these down here. Side of the tracks. I decided to bring the road bed right in to the mine. I kind of looked at a few pictures, and some mining companies do, some don't, but I've decided to do it. We're going to just give you a better view here of what's happening. Again, get the paddle out. Everything has to be flattened out. Make sure that the glue gets right up. And now you can see why I've outlined my switches, because I want to see exactly where they are. Now this is just a track. Let's get this down. And you can come with this road bed, you can come longer if you have extra space at the end. So once it's all in place, smooth it out nicely. Another track. Now the reason I'm doing this much, normally I wouldn't maybe do this much, but I'm thinking I can get them all in single pieces, so it's going to be pretty quick to do this. So I'm ripping the road bed, and the first piece we put in, we just run along here like this. And you get that all the way to the end. Make sure it's lined up. Very good. Now the next piece, I'm just going to bring it up as far as I can, so it just touches. And then I'm just going to run it all the way out like this. Okay, very good. Get another piece of road bed, stripping that out. Again, just going to run this up as far as I can. Spin the blade like that. Next piece, same thing, as far as I can. Now this one is going to go about there. Follow that midline. Okay, so this is what we have now. We have the road bed coming in, first switch. We got a piece in there that we need to do, piece in there, piece in there, and then these tracks will all come down nicely. Make sure they're positioned properly. Now, we're supposed to be 2.5 centers on these. Dead. Stone dead on, and that one is stone dead on. So far we're doing good. I'm just going to replace the camera back in the stand here. Don't get too dizzy. We'll try to fill in some of these areas. What you can do is you take the track with the bevel and you match it, turn it upside down and match it with the bevel on the other side. And just cut that in. And that should sit in there nicely. Any areas that are, it doesn't seem to have any glue. A bit more glue in there. And you can just cut that off to match. A bit more glue in there too. Just a little bit that was on the end of the gun. Let's get that in there. And 2 more pieces. I'm searching for a bit of a better piece. Okay, so there we go. Road bed is in place. Sorry about the camera jumping all over. Now any areas down here, I'll just trim those off. And any areas that we have not totally filled in, we will use some spackle and fill those areas in so it doesn't use all your ballast up. Okay, so I'll trim these off and do some sanding and get back to you right before we paint. Okay, thank you. Hope this helped. Okay, here we are back. The track bed has all dried. It's now been speckled. And by speckle, what I use is this Cook filler. It's just a standard product for filling cracks, and I wanted to show you the crack filler, or the speckle, whatever you want to call it, on there first, and then show you what happens once we paint it. So you can see that right now it looks pretty hideous, but once you paint it, you don't even see it, and it saves a lot of ballast going down those little cracks. Now, the next stage is going to be a bit of exercise for us. So what we're going to do is take a sanding block, and we're just going to sand along the edges. And you see all those little areas, all those little clumps of cork. We're holding the two things together to come off. And then we just bevel that a little bit, because if you don't have a smooth, let me just do this one and show you what I mean. Okay, so if you don't have a smooth bevel here, when you go to ballast, the ballast will all stick and it will just be a nightmare for you. So it's better to do it now. Sand this off. So if you come over here, you see this rough stuff all along here? That can't be there. It just comes up the works. So you want to get your and lock them in. Get that all sanded down so it's nice and smooth. Okay, so I'm going to go sand all this, and I'll come back when we're painting.